He snapped my finger like a dry twig across my kitchen table when I told him no. I heard it before I felt it. A clean, small crack beneath my skin, like someone stepping on an eggshell. The coffee mug slid out of my other hand and shattered on the linoleum in a circle of brown and porcelain. For a second, my brain didn't understand the pain. It just watched his face. My son's mouth opened. Then closed. He looked down at my hand in his grip as if it belonged to someone else. As if he couldn't be linked to the pain that lived in it now. "Why do you make me do this?" he said, his voice breaking the way my finger had. "Why do you make things so hard? If you've never had your heart drop and your body follow, I hope you never do." I sat there with my hand trapped in his, bone wrong, the smell of burnt coffee and dish soap in the air, and I stared at my boy. My boy, who once slept on my chest with a fist curled to his cheek like a comma. My boy, who used to bring me dandelions with the roots still attached, proud. My boy, who was now a man with a jaw like his father's and a temper to match. I said no, I told him. And no is still the answer. He let go of me like he'd been burned and stumbled backward. A sound came out of me, small and tired, from somewhere old inside. He ran a hand through his hair. "You don't understand," he said. "We need the house. Lila's already posted it. People have seen it. The bank said we just need a co-signer. It's not even a big deal. Just a formality." Lila. His wife with the careful makeup and the permanent camera smile. Lila, who said motherhood content paid better when the backsplash matched the baby's high chair. My daughter-in-law with an account full of sunsets and captions about gratitude, who tilted plates toward the light and took 5 photos before she let herself take a bite. Lila had looked me in the face 3 nights before and said, "It's just your signature. We can handle the rest." My credit is the only thing worth anything I own, I told them both. My house is paid off. I'm too old to start over because you want a waterfall island and a soaking tub. "We're your family," Lila had said, tapping her nails on the table. "Didn't you always want to help us?" I had wanted to help them. I had. I helped buy him back-to-school sneakers when the soles were thin. I helped him with the price of his first truck. I helped him pay a fine once when he borrowed a friend's car and got pulled over for expired tags. I helped him, and every help was supposed to be the last one, the one that bridged us over to a calmer place. But calm never came. Something else always did. He was my only child. His father left when he was 8, and I made a life out of 2 jobs and a pot of soup that could stretch 6 different ways. I told myself I didn't mind. I told myself that love was supposed to be heavy. I told myself that he just needed time to be gentle again. That it was the world that made him hard when what he really was underneath was soft. I sat there with my broken finger and my broken stories and said, "No." He went very still. His cheek twitched, the way it did when he was a little boy trying not to cry. For a flash of a moment I saw him at 3, scraped knee, bottom lip bitten, fighting tears because boys don't. Then his eyes went flat. He stood so fast his chair fell back and clattered on the floor. "Fine," he said, thick. "Fine. You'll regret this." He snatched his keys and stormed out. The door slammed so hard the window shook in its frame. The house fell quiet in that ugly way, like when a fight throws all the air out of a room and the walls are holding their breath. I looked down at my hand. The finger bent where it shouldn't. It was my ring finger on my right hand, the one I never wore a ring on because it felt wrong when he was little and wanted to hold my hand with his whole grip. It pointed inward, toward my palm, like it had decided to surrender. I wrapped it in a dish towel because I couldn't look at it anymore and because I needed something to press against the pain. I drove myself to urgent care with my left hand on the wheel, my right cradled against my stomach. I told the nurse I was clumsy. "Slammed it in a drawer," I said, and laughed like that was funny, and the nurse looked at me with eyes that had seen worse and said nothing. The doctor set the bone and put a splint on it. He was kind. His hands were steady and he didn't ask too many questions. He touched the edge of the splint when he was done and said, "Keep it dry. Don't lift anything heavy. And if you need anything else." The word else sat there between us like a small animal. I nodded and said I was fine. Because that's the song. I know all the verses. I drove home with a paper bag of pain pills and instructions and sat at my kitchen table again. I picked the pieces of the mug out of the coffee, one by one, with my left hand, and wrapped them in paper towels so the garbage bag wouldn't tear. I cleaned the stain. It didn't come all the way out. My phone buzzed. A message from Lila. A photo of a house with white columns and a porch swing and windows like polished eyes. The caption, "Manifesting." A heart emoji. No words to me. No, are you okay? No, what happened? I thought about texting her back a picture of my hand. I thought about saying, this is what it looks like when I manifest a boundary. I didn't. I turned my phone face down and sat still long enough for the sun to move from one side of the kitchen to the other. The clock over the stove ticked the hours like knuckles on a door I refused to open. You think this was our first fight? It wasn't. It was just the first time he broke something you could see, the first time I raised a boundary. He was 19 and angry at the whole world, and I told him he couldn't come in after midnight and expect me to leave the porch light on. He kicked the bottom of the door with his heel and left a crescent moon dent near the step. He said, "You owe me," and I said, "For what?" And he didn't have an answer that didn't make him sound like a stranger. When he met Lila, he brought her over for dinner on a Sunday and she sat at my table and told me what she was going to do with my boy. "He's got so much potential," she said, smiling. "He just needs focus. I can do that for him." As if I hadn't tried to do that, for 2 decades, with every decent thing I had. As if she had invented love. They got married 2 months later, on a beach with matching tattoos and mason jars for beer. He bought her a ring on a credit card and told me not to worry about the payments. "I've got a new job lined up," he said. The new job turned into 2 part-time gigs and then into one that paid in promises and then into a hustle that smelled like rot as soon as he brought it in the house. "You don't get it," he said. And I admit, I didn't. The rules of money had changed while I was busy paying the light bill. There were new words for old things, and if you said them fast enough it sounded like magic. They posted a photo of the 2 of them holding a key in front of a rental and wrote, "Homeowners." Under it, until the landlord messaged and asked them to take it down. The thing about wanting is it makes you blind. They wanted the house like it was going to save their marriage, their image, their hope. They wanted it like it could raise a child for them one day and keep the bad thoughts out and the good ones in. They wanted it like a storybook. I didn't want to be the witch in that storybook. I didn't want to be the mother at the door, hands on the frame, saying, no, but I was the only one who knew the math. I was the only one who knew what it felt like to watch a man walk away and take your good credit with him. I was the only one who had spent a night on a couch with a suitcase because the landlord changed the locks before the first. I had learned the math with my body. No was the only number that added up. They tried nice. Then they tried mean. "I thought you believed in us," Lila texted. "Then, I guess we know where we stand. Then, if something happens with the baby because we're stressed." And I put the phone down and walked outside and breathed cooler air, because what do you do with a sentence that uses a child who isn't even here yet as a bargaining chip? I called my friend Tasha. We met when we were 22 and stupid and nothing about us was planned. She's the one who taught me that you can say no to church potlucks and still be invited to the next one. She's the one who brought casseroles when my ex moved out and didn't make me tell the story twice. "You gotta lock your credit," she said. "Right now. Freeze that thing like it's a stake you're saving for later." I did. I sat at my computer and made accounts and answered questions about the street I grew up on and my first car and the color of the house we rented on Maple. I put locks on every door I could find, even the ones I didn't know existed. It made me feel like I was protecting something, even if what I was protecting was invisible. 2 days later, I got a call from a loan officer named Marisol. "Hi, Miss Carter," she said, warm and brisk, the way women who handle other people's panic all day learn to be. "I just wanted to verify that you'll be at your home on Thursday at 3 for the mobile notary." "No," I said. The word landed with a thud. "I didn't schedule anything." There was a pause. I could hear the hum of her computer through the line. "It says here that your son and his spouse scheduled a co-sign appointment," she said carefully. "With your authorization via email." "I didn't authorize anything," I said. "I told them no." I froze my credit. "That's good," she said. "That's very good. Do you mind if I ask? Did you send an email this morning from a Gmail address that ends with your name and the year?" "No," I said again. My mouth went dry. "That's not mine." "Okay," she said. Her voice went soft and solid, like a hand on your back when you need to move forward. "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to flag this as potential fraud on our end. I can set a note on your account that says no co-signing, no exceptions, and require in-branch notarized ID. But if someone is attempting to sign as you, it might be a good idea to get law enforcement involved." Something in me tried to clamp down on that. The part that didn't want my boy to sit on a bench with other boys who had made worse choices. The part that wanted to believe it was all a misunderstanding, a misclick. A mess they would clean up with an apology, but my finger throbbed in its splint. Hot and insistent, and told me that we were past misunderstandings. What happens if we set up the appointment, I said, surprising myself with how steady I sounded, and someone comes to my door to notarize a thing that is not mine? Then we document, Marisol said. And if a forgery is attempted, we refer it. If you want, I can connect you to our fraud investigator. Name's Harris. He's good. He'll walk you through it. I looked at the streak on my table where the coffee stain had made a ring. It would never be spotless again. Connect me, I said. Let's walk. Harris spoke like a man who had seen every bad decision 1,000 times and still believed in people. We'll need you to get a case number, he said. We'll need you to not confront them. We'll need you to set the appointment for when you can have an officer nearby. And Ms. Carter? I know this is hard. I've done hard, I said. Just tell me where to stand. I filed a police report for identity theft. The officer at the counter wrote down my story, nodded at my hand, and asked if I felt safe. I told him I did. I wasn't sure if that was true. He gave me a card with a number and said, "Call if anything changes." His name was Reed and he had a polite mustache and eyes like a father. He did not make me feel stupid, which is half the battle. I texted Lila. Fine, I wrote. Thursday at 3. She sent back 5 clapping emojis and a photo of a gray couch circled in red. This would look amazing in the new living room, she wrote. You won't regret it. I didn't respond. I put my phone in a drawer and went outside and sat on the back steps with my splinted hand in my lap. The sky was the kind of blue that makes you mad because it doesn't care about your problems. I watched a squirrel argue with a blue jay and thought about the way my life had become a job where I had to guard my own name like a safe. That night, I dreamed my son was 8 again and asked me to cut his hot dog into coins. Please, and could I blow on them because they were too hot? I woke with my pillow wet and a pain in my chest that was older than the broken finger. Thursday came like a train you hear long before it arrives. The house was too clean. Tasha came and sat in the living room with a book open in her lap, pretending to read. Officer Reed parked at the corner in an unmarked car and texted me, "I'm here." Harris said he'd be on the line with Marisol, recording. At 2:59, my doorbell rang. It wasn't my son. It wasn't Lila. It was a man with a briefcase who could have been anyone. He had a badge that said he was a notary public and a clipboard and a smile that never touched his eyes. Good afternoon, Miss Evelyn, he said. He looked at the splint and didn't ask. Yes, I said. I stood a little behind the screen door so he couldn't see the living room where Tasha sat without breathing. He held up the clipboard. Just need to get your wet signature on a few things, he said, cheer in his voice like a radio ad. Won't take long. What are the documents? I asked. My voice was steady. My hand was not. Consent to co-sign, proof of identity, an authorization letter to allow your son to act as your agent in your absence, should you not be available at closing, he rattled off. Standard. And who am I signing for? I asked. For the purchase of? Let's see. For 12 Peony Lane, he said, glancing down. He tapped the paper with a pen. Pretty street name. You're gonna love it. Funny, I said. I've never been. I opened the screen door and stepped back so he could see Tasha. She smiled without her eyes. Behind me, out on the street, a car door shut quietly. Before we start, I said, as politely as if I were offering him lemonade, I need to check something. My friend Harris is on the phone to verify that the bank is recording this. And Officer Reed is outside in case this turns out to be what we think it is. Do you have identification? And the authorization email you say I sent, printed, with headers. He froze. The pen stopped tapping. He looked up in a way that told me a lot of things. Ma'am, I'm just here to notarize, he said. If you're uncomfortable, we can reschedule. Your son said, my son, I said, broke my finger because I said no. Silence. He swallowed. A drop of sweat slipped from his temple like a bead and hung on his jaw. Tasha's book didn't move. She had always been very good at pretending she wasn't a shield while she was being a shield. Do you need water? She asked the man lightly, as if they were all at a church bake sale. He handed me his card. It was real. The number checked out. But the email on it didn't end in anything official. It was a name that was almost, but not quite, his. Small things are how you catch big lies. I should go, he said, backing down the steps. I didn't know. Didn't know what? Officer Reed asked from the gate. He had walked up quiet as rain, the notary's eyes flicked to the street and back. I didn't know she hadn't authorized it, he said, deflating. I got the assignment through an app. I swear. I just get a place and a time. Sometimes they hand me the docs at the door. Who handed you the docs? Reed asked. His voice was calm. I had the sense he could stand there all day. A woman, he said. He took another step back. Blonde. Pretty. Said her mother-in-law was expecting me. Gave me a piece of paper and told me not to worry if the ID didn't match, that she had a new one printed for the bank. I didn't, she said everything was above board. Where? Reed asked. The parking lot at the boutique on Maple, he said. Out back. He looked at me, pleading. I'm not trying to get mixed up. I swear. I'm just trying to pay my rent. Then you'll tell the truth, Reed said. Names. Dates. And you'll hand over those documents now. The man took the clipboard from his briefcase with hands that shook. He passed it to Reed like a student handing over a test. I heard Lila before I saw her. She came around the corner with sunglasses on and a scarf tied like she was afraid of the sun. She stopped dead when she saw Reed and the way my face looked when I was done being scared. Her smile tried to form and then gave up. Hey, Evie, she said. Only my sister called me that. Lila wasn't my sister. We were just trying to save you a trip to the bank. You know how you hate errands. I know a lot of things, I said. I know what my name looks like when I write it, and that's not it. She blinked twice. Her face went blank. It is a talent, the blankness. I think there's been a mix-up, she said. I emailed you. You said yes. You emailed an address that isn't mine, I said. You pressed your finger where mine should be. I held up my splinted hand. You pushed me until I bent. Reed stepped in. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me to answer some questions, he said. You're not under arrest at this moment. But we have a report of attempted identity fraud. We have a witness. We have documents. We'd like to keep things polite. Lila held her phone like a rosary. You don't understand, she said. We're doing this for our family. You people always make it so hard. You make it so hard to get ahead, and when we try to do what's right for our child, what child? I asked quietly. The one you wrote a sentence about to scare me with? Or the one you have to meet yourself before you use as a threat? Her mouth flattened. She looked at me like I had failed an exam she had been sure I would cheat on. This is your fault, she hissed. You don't want nice things for us. You don't want us to win. I want you to learn how to live without stealing the ground from under someone else's feet, I said. That is winning. They didn't cuff her on my lawn. Reed was a gentleman about it all, and I was grateful because the neighbors' blinds were already trembling with gossip. He took statements. He took the clipboard and his calm away to a car where he could breathe out the stress of telling families bad news. When they left, I shut the door and leaned my forehead against it until the cool pressed some of the heat out of my skin. The thing about justice is it moves slow. It doesn't care about your urgency. It doesn't make a good video unless you edit out all the waiting. There was a lot of waiting after that. Harris called. We'll be flagging every application attached to your social, he said. Our legal team is involved now. You did the right thing. Tasha sat me down and heated up leftovers and set them in front of me like I was a kid. Eat, she said. I ate. The food tasted like cardboard and blessings. My son didn't call that night. Or the next. He didn't come by. He didn't show up with flowers or apologies or a story that would make sense of it. He went quiet. That was worse, in a way. When he was small and he hid, it meant he was ashamed. When he was older and he hid, it meant he was planning. So I planned too. I talked to a lawyer about a restraining order. He asked me what I wanted and I said, I want my house to feel like my house. He drew up papers that made it illegal for my son to step on my porch without my say-so. My hands shook when I signed them. The judge read the report of the broken finger and the attempted forgery and the officer's notes and signed his name. A stamp came down on the paper with a thump that felt like a small shield being handed to me. I cried in my car and wiped my face with the sleeve of my sweater like a teenager. I put new locks on the doors anyway. I added a camera by the front steps. I put my important documents in a firebox under my bed like I was a secret agent. I slept with the bedroom door locked, a thing I hadn't done since my ex left, and I dreamed that the whole house had glass bones. Days passed. I went to work at the clinic and smiled at patients and booked appointments and took my pain pill only when I couldn't think around the throbbing. Lila posted a photo of a coffee shop with a caption about fake friends and jealousy. I turned off her stories. I went to the grocery store and bought strawberries that were a little too soft and ate them over the sink with a spoon and felt something like joy for the first time in weeks. Then the investigator called. "Miss Carter," he said. "We have enough. There will be charges for attempted identity theft and forgery. The DA's office is reviewing. I wanted you to hear it from me." I sat down at my table and put my good hand flat on the wood. "And my son?" I asked. The question hung like a fog. "We have testimony that he was present for conversations," he said. "We have the incident with your finger. The DA may consider an assault charge as well. It will depend on your statement." I thought about my boy as a baby. I thought about him as a man standing in my kitchen with his hand around my wrist. I thought about the way his eyes went stranger. I thought about the notary sweating on my steps. I thought about my own name, how I had written it so many times on school permission forms and doctor releases and birthday cards, and how it was mine. "Mine, I'll testify," I said. The words felt like pebbles in my mouth. "I'll tell the truth." I know what some of you are thinking. "He's your son. How could you?" Or maybe you're thinking, "How could you not?" Both things are true at the same time. That's the awful miracle of mothers. We hold two truths and they burn us both ways. The day of the hearing, I wore a plain dress and my old black shoes and sat on a bench outside the courtroom with my hands in my lap like a schoolgirl waiting to be called. Tasha sat beside me with her arm around me like a seatbelt. My son arrived with a lawyer whose shoes cost more than my rent. Lila wasn't allowed in. She'd been arrested, posted bail, and started posting memes about persecution with Bible verses underneath. "Holiness looks different when you've been caught." He looked at me without looking. His face was thinner. His jaw worked. For a second I saw the little boy who had a cowlick that stood up on the left no matter what I did. He almost smiled. Then he didn't. He went inside. When it was my turn, I walked to the stand and put my hand up and said I would tell the truth. My voice shook and then it didn't. I told the story without decoration. The door. The table. The coffee. The crack. The notary. The card. The officer. The papers. I did not look at him when I said. He grabbed my hand. I looked at the judge. I looked at my own crooked finger and I showed it to the room and I let them look at it too. His lawyer tried to make me small. He asked me if I'd ever been dramatic. He asked if I could have overreacted. He asked if I had a grudge against my daughter-in-law. "She called me Evie," I said, and there was a little laughter in the back of the room because people understand intimacy theft even when they don't understand law. He brought up the fact that I had helped him pay his fine when he was 20. "And," I said, "that's called mothering. Not a contract to enable." The judge, a woman with hair like steel wool and a face like a saved penny, watched us all. When it was done, she leaned forward and spoke softly. "Miss Carter, thank you for your testimony," she said. She turned to my son. "Mr. Carter, the fact that this is your mother does not make this less serious. It makes it more so. They didn't put him in handcuffs. This isn't a movie. There were continuances and deals and classes. He had to attend anger management. He had to pay fees. He had to stay away from me for a year and a day." Lila's case went slower. Forgeries take time to untangle. The bank moved like a patient elephant. There were more hearings. There were more tears. There were nights I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and wondered what I had done to make a boy who could do that. Then I remembered, we all make our own. He was not a recipe I followed. He was a person who made choices in a world that kept handing him more. I started to think of it as revenge with paperwork. Not the kind that costs you your soul. The kind that puts things back where they belong. My name back with me. My house back in the circle of my own arms. My peace in the room where I sleep. One afternoon, after 3 months of quiet, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a small white box with a battered mug wrapped in tissue paper. A crack ran through the middle but it had been glued with a line of gold. "Kintsugi. Fixing broken things with something bright." There was a note in a handwriting I would know if I were blind. "I'm sorry," it said. "I thought you would help me win. I didn't know winning could look like not getting what I want." I put the mug on the shelf. I didn't call. Not yet. Not because I was holding out for the perfect apology. Because I needed my insides to grow back around the place he had hurt me before I let him in the door again. Then I did something I had not done in a long time. I made plans that didn't include worrying. I planted herbs in little pots on the back steps and watched them grow. The mint went wild. The basil pouted. The rosemary minded its business. I invited Tasha over and we ate pasta and drank cheap wine and played cards until our laughter ran out of breath. I bought a dress that fit the body I have now and not the one I had at 29, and when I looked in the mirror, I didn't flinch. I know some women will hear this story and measure themselves against it. Am I as strong as her? Would I have called the police? Would I have kept quiet? Let me say this, strength is what you do with the day you're given. There were days I lay down and moaned. There were days I answered with grace. Most days, I did my best, which looked like paperwork and potatoes and quiet. I have spent my life forgiving men who never asked and waiting for boys who stood me up. I am done with that work now. I retired. A year after the first hearing, I was grocery shopping when I ran into him. The storm had moved out of his face. He looked tired. Younger, in a strange way. Like grief had peeled a layer off and left something tender underneath. He was alone. "Hi, Mom," he said. He didn't reach out. I put my basket down. "Hi," I said. My voice came out normal. That surprised me. We stood there between the cereal aisle and the canned soups like people in a photograph. He fumbled with the cap on a bottle of tea. "I'm going to meetings," he said. "I'm working with someone. I've been doing the anger thing. They make you write amends letters. They make you bring them. I wrote one and didn't bring it." "You sent the mug," I said. He looked up, relief and shame crashing into each other in his eyes. "Yeah," he said. "I didn't know if it was stupid." "It was good," I said. "It was a start." "Lila moved to her sister's," he said. "There's a baby. She's not mine." He laughed then, a small ugly sound. "I guess God is funny when I'm not looking." I didn't know what to do with that, with any of it. I wanted to touch his face. I wanted to say, "Come over on Sunday and I'll make the soup you like." I wanted to say, "Keep going. It isn't my job to hold you up anymore, but I can clap from the stands." "Finish your classes," I said. "Do the work. Don't come to the house. Not yet." He nodded. His eyes went wet. He didn't wipe them. He let them be. "Okay," he said. The word was a small boat. After he left, I stood by the large apples and breathed. A woman I didn't know touched my arm. "I heard," she whispered. "About what you did. I'm proud of you. I am not brave. Or maybe I am, but in the way people are brave when they have no other choice. Do you want to know what happened with the house? It's sold to a family with 2 little boys who ride scooters on the sidewalk and leave chalk sunbursts on the driveway. They put a swing on the porch, and the first time I drove by, there was a man pushing a toddler in that swing with his head thrown back, laughing, and the sound carried across the street like something being returned to the right shelf. Lila pled out on a lesser charge and posted a video the next day about haters. She glossed it with a Bible verse about forgiveness and put her phone on a stand and cried into a ring light. The comments were kind and cruel in the ways the internet is always half one, half the other. I didn't watch all the way through. I turned my face to the sun and watered my plants and decided not to carry a weight that wasn't mine to lift. If you are listening to this because you are sitting at your own kitchen table with a decision like a shard of glass in your palm, let me say something that would have helped me. No is a complete sentence. You are allowed to protect your peace like it is a small animal. You are allowed to make your name into a lock and keep the key. You are allowed to say, "I love you, but I will not help you hurt me." I still wake sometimes and think I hear his little feet on the hallway floor, the soft thump of a child asleep on the move. I still walk past the photo of him at 5 in his cowboy boots and feel my throat close, because I did love that boy with the ferocity of a storm. I still keep his kindergarten drawing on my fridge, the one where he wrote "Mom is happy" in block letters and the smiling stick figure has hair down to her shoulders and arms like the sun. I keep it not because it proves anything now, but because it reminds me that once, long ago, we both wanted the same thing. I am not the villain in his story. I am not the angel either. I am a woman who said no. A mother who pressed charges. A person who put her finger back where it belonged, crooked and true. When I hold a pen now, it looks different in my hand. I sign my name slower. I sign it like a prayer. Every letter is mine. Sometimes Tasha comes over with a bag of lemons and says, "Let's bake a pie," and the house smells like sugar and zest and I think, this is winning. Sometimes the quiet hums and it sounds like loneliness, and I sit with that until it sounds like peace again. Sometimes, on Sundays, I make soup and I set out 2 bowls and then I put one away. I'm not waiting. I'm practicing welcoming. There's a difference. I don't know how this ends. Maybe one day he'll knock and I'll open the door and we'll stand on the threshold and decide at the same time to step through. Maybe I will meet a child who looks like him and see that spark and not be afraid. Maybe not. Life doesn't sign contracts with us. It hands us pens and watches. This is what I know. I didn't co-sign the loan for the house his wife wanted. He broke my finger when I said no, and I had it set and then I set the record straight. I chose me. I chose to be the woman who didn't let her love be a crowbar someone else used to break into her life, and on mornings when the light falls just right on the old wood of my kitchen table, I can almost see the coffee stain as a halo. Not a mark of ruin. A ring of what was saved. When I lock the front door now, the thunk is a small song. It says, "You did it." It says, home, the kind that doesn't need a porch swing or a powder room to be real. It lives under your ribs. It lives in your hand, crooked and healed, reaching for what's yours and learning how to hold it gently. If you like the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.